All right, hey everybody. What we're gonna do in this class, I'm gonna show you how to create an app with multiple screens, okay? In the past, what we did, we created only one app, an app with one screen. Okay, we did the launch screen, but the launch screen, you can't do much with it. So go ahead and create a new project, and we're gonna call that single view app. All right, so we're gonna click next, and we say many screen app. Okay, and what we're going to do is that, by the end of this class, is that you will be able to pass information from one screen to another screen and go back. All right, so and then everything is okay. It's Swift, iPhone, and no code data, and you click on next, and you click on create. All right. Just to review what we have in our project, and this is what is important. In the main storyboard, you already have one screen. This is your first screen that's given to us. This is a view controller. So a view controller is it's like a screen that it's like a form. You can put things on it, right? So this is a view controller. And that's what this is here. You see that? This is a view controller, and you have a view controller in the object list. So what you can do is that you can actually add more to it. But let's start with this and review what we have. So we have a view controller. This view controller is associated with a class. So I have here in the identity inspector, I have a class associated with this screen. So every view controller usually have a class for the coding part. So I have a class here, a view controller, and I have a class associated with it. And here's the code for that class. Now, what happens is that when you go to the main storyboard, and then you click on that editor assist, you get the class for the code for that class. All right, you get it? You understand? All right. Now, you can give each screen a title, so you can identify them. Sometimes you can have multiple screens. So you can, for organization purposes, you can give it a different title. And how do we do that? If you go back to the standard editor, and then you can select this view controller by clicking on it here. And in the property, there is a title. You see that? So I can call it main screen, for example. All right? Just for identification. Now, what happens if you look at if you look at the document outline, you'll see that now it used to be called a view controller. Now it says main screen. So if you have many of them, I can go navigate to them from here, from the main screen. All right? All right, so if we want to put few buttons here, let's put few buttons. So I'll show you what we're going to do in a minute. We're going to navigate to a different screen from these buttons. So I'm going to put a button 1 here, button 2, and button 3. All right? And you can call them different things. You can say, for example, screen 1. I'm going to go to screen 1. And then this will take me, of course, you can make it bigger. And maybe let's format this and make it the way we want it to look by changing the diagram color, for example. All right, and make it a little bit bigger. And now what happens is that you can do command copy, command C, and command V. So you got the same style and same size. And then you simply change the name of this. So you say screen 2, and then this is screen 3. All right? So I'm going to pause this to give you a minute to do this part. All right? So I'm going to pause the recording and give you a few minutes to do that. Okay. So the next step, after you add this button, this app, when you click on these buttons, it's supposed to take you to, like, you have multiple screens. Screen 1, screen 2, and screen 3. Let's change this one to say, already says screen 3. All right, how do we add screen to this storyboard? Okay, you can zoom a little bit so you can see multiple. Okay, here's the first screen. And notice that this is your entry point. Yeah, this arrow means that I'm going to start with this screen. So if I want to add another screen here, we'll add something called view controller. And the type of this is UI view controller. So I can drag it and drop it in here. All right. Is that clear? Now I can give this view controller a title, just like we did with the first one. So I know, because now if you look at the document outline, you have many screens. Now you have a view controller here and you have main screen. I can add another view controller if I want. Now I have 3. You can see eventually what happens is that you have many of those and you don't know what you're looking at. So it's better to give them titles. So I can do this with this one here. I can say, I can go to the title here, go to the property of this view controller. Now to click on the view controller, you click on here and you can give it a title. So for example, you can say screen 1. Okay, or actually you type it out. So screen 1, right? And then you do the same thing with the other one. You say screen 2. So now, if you notice in your document outline, you do have, it's easier. If I want to go to screen 1, I can go to screen 1. If I want to go to screen 2, I just simply click in here and it will take me to screen 2. All right? All right. Now, you can just change and add a label to these things. All right? So I'm going to add a label to change. Let's change the background color first of these guys. So you click on the view. Not the controller, the view, and then you go to the property, and here's your background color. Select the different color you want, any color you want, okay? Same thing with the other one. Change the different color to something different, more colorful, right? Is that clear? Yeah? So all we did is that we changed the background color of the screens. All right, now I'm gonna add 2 labels to these things. We say label 1, or just labels to say something. You can zoom, and I'm gonna change these labels to say something different, right? And I'm gonna say in the label here, say welcome, hi there. Okay, this is screen, you are in screen 1. Okay, right? Now, notice with the label, if you wanted to make it longer, okay, what you can do is that you can make it lines, okay? You can make it multiple lines if you want to display more than 1 line. So you can do that in here if you want to. Let me pause it for a minute. Okay, so in the next one, you can just copy this label if you want from here, control copy, command copy, and then go in here, and then we already have it, command V here, for example. Okay, now I have that label here, so instead of retyping it, I'm gonna delete that one. And then we're gonna say screen 2 here, for example. And instead of change the phrase if you want. Hello, something like this. You are, okay, something like that. Okay, is that clear? Now, this next part is I'm going to talk to you about how to navigate from one screen to another screen. First, let me give you a chance to finish these screens, all right? So I'm going to pause it for a minute. All right, so now, how do I go from one screen to another screen? All right. I'm gonna hide this for a minute, and then let's see these screens. Just zoom a little bit so you can see this part. All right, so I have, this is my first, this is one screen, this is another screen, and here's another screen, right? Okay, what you do is that you click on the button that's supposed to take you to that screen, and you either click on the control from your keyboard and click and drag, or right click and drag, either one. So if you right click and drag, and it take you to this screen. So when I hit on that button, it's supposed to take me to this screen. When I release the button, you get a menu. This is called action segue, or it's a road, okay? So what happens is that when I click on it, I can select from this menu what I want to do. There are things that are old. You can see this. It says not adaptive action segue. When you see the word deprecated means that it is an old method. So we usually try to avoid these deprecated methods because eventually they will disappear. What do we need to select? There is one that most of us use, which is called show. It will take you from here to there. There are different options. Okay, I'll explain these options as we go along. But we will select show for now. And you'll see that you have a button, not a button, a line between this screen and that screen. You see that? Now, this line it's an object. It's a segue object. And it's UI segue, okay? Now, it has it also have properties. So, for example, if I click on the properties here, you'll see that if I select it, what am I looking at? See, Storyboard segue. I can give it a name. Here's the class, UI segue, and the view is called show. All right, and I select animated. Now, the animation, we will talk about it in a minute. You can actually have your own animation. And there are animations that are set by the device standard to transition from one screen to another screen. All right? So I can give it a name. So what is the name of this segue? I'm going to call it screen 1. All right? So I know that this line is going to take me to screen 1. I'll show you how we do that, why I'm doing that later on. All right? You got it? All right. Now we do the same thing with screen 2. Again, you do right click and drag to screen 2, and we're going to use again show. And then we will again give it a name. We select this line, and then we'll give it a name. The name is screen 2. Okay? And then leave it as animated. Okay? Now go ahead and run the application and see what happens. As we wait and wait and wait. All right, you see, now I got that was the launch storyboard, Now I got my menu, right? Now watch what happens. If I click on this screen, it took me to that screen. But how do I go back? Yeah, I'll show you how we go back in a minute. You got it? You get the idea? So now I'm gonna do, stop it and let you do this part. All right. Well, the next piece, we're gonna show you what the different type of these segues. But first, do you see this line? Now, I can set which view controller to be my first view controller by simply dragging this line and drop it wherever I want. Now it will start here. It will not start on this screen. You get it? And same thing here. I can drag it and drop it here if you want to. The other way to do it is through the properties. So if you select a view controller, in the property here, you can say is initial view controller. So if I select this one, I make it is initial view controller, the arrow will move to that one. If I do here and I say this is my initial view controller, the arrow will move there too. So you can do it two ways, either by dragging the line or by doing it in the code. Sometime in the property. Sometimes what happens is that people make a mistake. They click on that line and they hit the delete. That line is gone. Now, if you run it, what happens to your app? If you run it, your app will crash. And I'm going to show you how it crashes. It will say that you don't have an entry point. See, now it will say here, do you see that? The main does not have an entry point, an initial view controller. So when you say, you see this here, it does not have a default view controller, what do you need to do? You need to go back to the storyboard and make sure that you have an entry point. And how do you do it? You select the view controller, you go to the property, and then you make it your initial view controller. Is that clear? Yeah. All right. Now, we talked about these segues. And then remember, what did we select? We selected show. You can change it if you want to afterward. You don't like show, you can change it after you delete, you made the connection, you can change it. How do you change it? You can select it from here. Remember, let's create another screen. I'll show you and show you the difference. If I create another screen here, I put another screen here, a view controller, okay, and I'm going to change quickly. By the way, I'm going to show you how to copy and paste a view controller. I'm going to delete this. This is my view controller. I can do command copy, and then I'm going to hit command V. Now I should have another view controller, maybe. What happened to it? It's behind it. Okay. See, now I have another one, right? So what you can do, you can actually change it if you want to. So instead of repeating everything, I'm gonna give this one, what is the title of this one? Notice it says screen 1. You can't have screen, this screen 2, right? You can't have the same screen 2. So I'm gonna give it a different name, screen 3, for example. And I'm gonna change the label here to say screen 3, all right? So when I click on this button, I'm going to go to this screen, but instead of selecting show now, I'm going to select present modally. And what's the difference? Now, let's select that segue, go to the property, give it a title. This is screen 3, but notice what do you have here? You have more options. You have something called transition. So when you go from one screen to another screen, now you can select the transition you want. For example, you can say, I want to be able to cover vertically or flip horizontally. So now if I say that and I click and run it, and if I click on this, notice how it flipped. Yeah, that is with modal transition. You can modal segues. You can specify your own transitions. You can select from the transitions, or you can have your own custom transitions, and that would be a little bit advanced for now. All right, so you can do this again if you already have a connection. This one we started with a new connection. If you already have a connection and then you wanted to change it, you select it again, and then you go to here, and then now present modeling. And now I can select the presentation type. For example, sorry, not the presentation. I can do the transition type. What do I do? We did flip horizontally. I can do what? Cross dissolve, for example. All right. And this one, I'm going to select it. I'm going to show you the different part. And I'm going to do this one, present modeling. But this one, I'm going to do partial curl. Okay. And you'll see the difference. Now, if I click on, if I run it, you'll see, we'll start with the partial curl first. Watch what happens. Do you see that how it, like a page? All right. If you run it again, yeah. Yeah. No, no, no. I gave you different ways to do it. This one, do you see how it dissolves? And the last one that we saw. All right. Let me pause for a minute. All right. So we were able to go to these different screens. But the issue is now, how do we go back from this screen to the previous screen, to the main menu? Now, there are different ways to do that. Different ways, and Apple recommend certain ways. Okay, now I'm going to do it the easiest way, but it's not the right way. Once we get into the coding, I'll show you how we do it the right way. All right. So the easiest way to do it is that you add a button here, and from this button, it takes you back to this screen. So how do you do that? You just simply click on add a button here. If I can find a button. And then we call it back, right? Let me zoom a little bit so you can see it. And I'm going to say back in here. And you can change the background color if you want this button. So it easily can be identified. So let's say background color and select anything you want, okay? So that's the easiest way. And I'm going to copy this guy in all of them. So Command copy. I'm going to copy it in here, Command V. And I'm going to do it in the last screen, Command V in here. Okay, so I have back in all the screens. All right. And so the easiest way to do that is that you just simply, you right click from this button back in here. And then you do, again, if you want to do that flipping and stuff like that, you can do present modeling, and then you can select the transition from here. All right. You can do the transition, you select it, and then you go to the transition and whatever you want from here, for example, flip horizontally. All right. All right. And so you can do the same thing with the other button. You probably have to zoom a little bit so you can see the whole storyboard. Right click in here and then present modeling. I'm going to leave it the default, and then here, present modeling. All right. Now you can see pretty soon you have a spaghetti code. It's like a spaghetti lines everywhere, right? So that's the problem with all these connections, okay? But we'll fix it in a minute. All right, all right. But now at least you have a way to get back. So you run it. Notice if you do that, okay, I can click back, do this, back, do this, and then back. All right? Is that clear? No, you can select anything you want. I'm just putting, this is your design. You can make it whatever you want. You don't have to follow my example. Okay. So what we've done now is that we were able to go from one screen and get back to it. But I said this is probably not the right way to do it. So how do we do it the right way? There's a little bit of coding to do it, but let me zoom a little bit here on this guy so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, this is my first view controller that we created that came with the app. It has code, remember that? So if you click on the code here for this guy, click on the editor assistant. What happens, you need to select this guy, okay? I selected the wrong screen. You get this code, right? What you have is you have this part. You have the view did load, which get executed when you first launch that screen, and the memory warning. But to get back, we need to add an IB action function. So what happens is that we connect this screen to an exit, and this back will take me back to here. So I have to create a function called IB action function and back. I'm gonna show you where we do this. You go to the view controller, basically, class, okay? In the view controller class, you create this function just like it is, okay? So go ahead and type it. IB action, back, you can call it whatever name you want. I called it back. And this function receive one parameter, is called segue, and the type of this parameter is UI storyboard segue. Now, if we go back to the main storyboard, after you type that function, do you see these lines from here to go into the back to the main storyboard? I want you to delete them, okay? Those only the lines from the back to the main storyboard. So you can click on it if you want, or select this line. Do you see that how it's going back? And then delete it. Do the same thing with this guy here, right? It's going back. You see, it's not the arrow coming in, the arrow going out. So delete it. Same thing in here. Okay, this arrow going backward, delete it, right? So you have only back what it was before. You see it? Yes or no? All right. Now, how do we go back? Click on screen 1. Again, right-click on that back button, and now, instead of connecting it here, where do we want to connect it? Do you see this exit? Yeah? And do you see this? Back. Where did this come back from? Where does this back come from? From the function that we did. Yeah, remember we did the function in this view controller? If we did not have that function, you will not be able to do that part. All right? So select it. And you do the same thing with this guy to exit. Back with segue. And then you do the same thing with this guy. Back with segue. All right? Now, why is this a better way? First of all, you don't have all these lines. Second of all, every time you go from one to here, from these lines, you're actually creating an object in memory. And when you go back the way we had it, the same way we did, we're actually creating another object in memory. So what happens is that eventually you'll have many, many objects in memory, and then you're eating away memory. So, but this one, it's actually deletes, you have only one object. Now test it, see if it works. If you do this, now you click on that, it went back. If you do this, you see that it uses the same transition too. You see that? It flipped forward and it flipped backward. You see that? Now this is like, see how it does it? Yeah? No, not the same. Not the same. This is a cleaner code, and then you're not using, you're creating multiple objects in the screen. All right? So this is the way that you should be using. All right? That one I just showed you the difference. Okay? All right, so this is one way to navigate from one screen to another screen. It's called present modeling. And then you have these nice transitions, okay? But sometimes you want to present in a different way, is like when you click on your phone contacts, for example. You click on the contact, it takes you to the next one, all right? Let me just show you. Where is the simulator? Okay, if we go home button, hardware go home. Where's home? Home button. All right, do you see this? Now, if I go back here, then we have multiple applications. But for example, if we have, where is the context? Do we have context? We don't have context. Do we have, Oh, let's check its settings. Do you see the setting? Now, what do you see on top here? You have a title, right? And then if I click on this, what happens? Take me to another screen. But notice you have here general. And what do you have in here? Settings. So it's actually doing what? It's giving you automatically a way to go back. Okay, so you can go here and then you can go back here. What do we call this? We call this navigation controller. Navigation controller. So how do we use navigation controller in our app? And notice you can always, when you go back, you get this back button. You go here, you can get the back button. You see that? But where is it my starting screen? Where do I start? I start on this screen in the setting. All right, so here is my screen. This is my starting point. I'm going to start here, right? Instead of doing this modeling now, I want to give me a title, navigation controller on the back. And I want it to be able to click on back automatically. I don't want this back button anymore. I can delete this back button, all right? But how do we do this part? What do? You select your main screen first. This is your main screen. You can do it in two ways. You can do it the easy way, something that is already done for you, or you can select from here something called navigation controller. If you type in navigation controller, you see that navigation controller, and you can add it. Well, I'm going to show you the quickest way, and you can modify it if you want. So you select your first screen. In the menu, you have up here a product, or sorry, editor. You see that editor? Under editor, you click on it. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay. Now it should be under editor. Embed in. Do you see that? So it's under editor, embed in. Embed in what? Embed in two options. What are the two options? Navigation controller and what? Tab controller. What's the difference? The tab controller is these buttons that you see at the bottom. Then the navigation controller is the one that I just showed you. So all I need to do is that say embed in navigation controller. And notice now what? I have a title for that screen. You see that? So when I run it, let me show you. When I run it, I get a title. I get a navigation controller. You see it? That's that tab bar. All right? Right, let's continue. Now you can give it a name here, this navigation controller, by double-clicking on it. You should be able to. Here, do you see that? Double-click on it, and I can say, call this main screen. All right? That's just like you saw in setting. All right? The other thing that you notice when we added that navigation controller, here is your navigation controller that was added. Notice it's just gray item. It does not have anything. You cannot add anything to it. You add to the screen, the first screen for that navigation controller. Okay, so this is called the root screen. This is every navigation controller must have a main screen, a view controller, your initial view controller, root view controller, we call it. So that is the root view controller for this navigation controller. And notice the arrow now points to the navigation controller. It does not point to that screen that we had. All right? Is that clear? All right. Now, what about these things? Why they don't have title just like this one has title? Now, do you select this transition, a segue? Select the segue between the two screens. And go to the property for that segue. What is the kind? What does the kind say here? Present modally. But if I want it to go with the navigation controller, we select the show. You see that? Example push. When I do that, notice automatically it put that navigation controller on top. Okay, you see that difference? I do the same thing with this one. Select the arrow going to it. You go into the kind and change it to what? Select show. Same thing with the last one. You go to here and you select show. Now, watch what happens. So when I click on this, notice I got the navigation controller, and you see that back button. What does it say? Main screen. It took me to the title. Whatever the title here, it will take you there. So main screen again. Notice this is a different way you can do transition. You go from one screen to another screen. Now, if I click on the back, does it work? It still works. All right? But do we need the back? If we have it here, do we need back? We don't need back, right? So that is the navigation controller. Now, you can change these titles for these navigation controllers. Remember, the default is whatever we put the title when we selected the navigation controller, and we put titles here. But you can change that if you want to. You can select the navigation controller. For example, the screen one, you can select it, and then under the property, it's not letting me. It's not letting me. All right, weird. It's not letting me select it, but anyway, you can change these titles either in the code, and you should be able to change it in the property, but it's not letting us. Let me check. I know some of you were able to get it. Let me check in here and see what happens from the property. I know some of you were able, but on my here I cannot change it for some reason. All right. That's your main scroll. Okay. Anyway, it's okay. You can just change it by the title. All right. What we're going to do, we're done with this part for today. And the next part, I'm going to show you how we pass information from one screen to another screen and back. And back. How do I pass information back to the screen that I came from? All right? And I will see you in the next video. Yalla. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.